І перед тим, як розпочати наступну доповідь, я хочу
Before starting the next presentation, I'd like to ask you, who among you who is using macOS? Who believes that macOS is the most secure operating system possible? I suggest that you don't listen to this presentation because now Vitaliy will tell you about macOS fuck-ups in the recent years, all those bypasses, all those features which would allow you to become an admin with empty password and so on. I think fuck-up is the wrong word here. Well, how do we name it better? Vitaliy, you're welcome anyway. Let us welcome Vitaliy. So, welcome everybody. As it has already been announced, I'll tell you about the key security threats in macOS. I am Vitaliy Mechytashvili. I work for Adware Defense company, and I am involved in security engineering, and my hobby is security research in macOS. Today, I'd like to tell you a lot about the update which was quite a while ago, which is 10.14, the last grand release of macOS with a large number of security features. Actually, they don't protect it a lot, and it's quite easy to bypass it, to circumvent them, and those techniques are even used in malware under macOS. Also, I'd like to tell you about Gatekeeper, about Xprotect. Those are embedded security tools for macOS which check digital signature and protects against unsigned applications and malware running. I'll tell you a bit about App Store because there were cases when some malware appeared in Mac Store, and there are cases when this malware still continues to exist there in App Store, and it's possible to download it and to install it in your computer without any warnings. And I'll show you how Safari extensions work, and there are quite a number of malicious Safari extensions which collect user history. They change the default search engine for users and so on. Also, I will show you a bypass which can be used when installing Safari extensions. So, in the last update, Safari extensions seem to only be able to install from App Store, but this is not the case. And I'll tell you a bit about CVEs if you still have time, and the most serious fuck-ups in macOS. So, that release took place on September 24, year 2014, and committed features mostly included security features like protection of user data like emails, contacts, access to camera and microphone. And when an application tries to use these things, it's either prohibited, or in the case of microphone and web camera, there will be a prompt window, and it will ask the user whether the user wants to allow that application accessing web camera or microphone. Also, I'll tell you a bit about Safari updates. Again, Apple was saying quite a lot and showing quite a lot about those and how they actually work. This is probably one of the fuck-ups, and that's how Apple tells users about privacy. They say that when you use Apple hardware like iPhones, Mac computers, you are protected and your personal data are safe and secure. But actually this is not the case, and even recently there was an event when the Chinese government asked to remove all VPNs from App Store, and Apple responded in a positive way and removed all VPN applications from App Store. Also, source codes for macOS are available at sourcecode.apple.com, and those are source codes for 10.12 to 10.13, and in those versions in macOS there is a default window where the user should enter his or her password when any application tries to elevate privileges, and this window would work as follows. There would be a temporary file for that password, and that password would record the password, and it would be stored in TMP folder, and within several microseconds before that password is read, everybody and anybody would have access to that folder. So if you connect a USB stick and write a simple script which should copy that folder, the directory to the USB stick, you would be able to get the user password and use the password from that system. Similarly, there are Gatekeeper and Xprotect features in macOS, and Gatekeeper is for digital signatures. For any and every application, before it's launched, before it runs on macOS, its digital signature should be checked, whether it's signed with a proper legitimate digital signature, or whether the signature is not blacklisted, and whether the hash has not changed for that application, for that digital signature. But actually this is not the case. Applications, after being loaded, get into quarantine, and they get this quarantined attribute, and Gatekeeper would only check applications from quarantine. So if that app was already there in the system and its code has been modified by somebody or something, or that application has bypassed the quarantine, then it will not be checked by Gatekeeper, and it will launch and it will run in the system. Only when the user opened that application the first time, that quarantine flag is removed, and after that this application is never checked again. In the same way, if that application comes to the computer not through a web browser but through the core, it doesn't get that quarantine flag, and that application can be launched without having its digital signature checked and without any warnings or security checks. In similar way, malware can remove quarantine flag when it has access to shell, when it has access to code execution. You can execute the Xcode remove attribute, and in that way quarantine flag will be removed from the application, and again the application will launch and will run. And anything can sign that application in the user's computer with its own certificate. In the same way, Apple has certain database of blacklisted certificates for malware, for some applications which were already reported to Apple. But unfortunately, that blacklist is very rarely updated. Previously, I would often do some malware analysis, and I saw some traffic from my virtual machine, and it happened literally like 2 times during half a year when that Gatekeeper tried to update its database. The rest of time, those databases would be outdated. In the same way, in the last versions of macOS, System Integrity Protection bypass works. System Integrity Protection is something that basically protects your personal data, private data, which does not allow execution of certain embedded Mac applications which have access to the core, which have root privileges. You can switch them off on your own, but it's better not to do it on host system. And again, this thing uses secure shell or SFTP, even with malware. It can be bypassed. There was the malware case with Bangalore, one of the most popular cases for macOS, when that app would create a key pair, a public and private key, for secure shell in the user's PC, and that public key would be entered in the authorized keys database, so that it would be able to log in with private key only without the password, and then it logs in and gets full disk access privileges in the system. And with that full disk access, you can get contacts and emails, notes, messages, and whatever else should be protected by default. After it works, you have this secure shell key wrapper. I did it here on manually. First, I opened that directory without system integrity protection switched off. Then the system said operation not permitted. Then I entered my public key in the authorized keys. I connected using secure shell and listed this directory, and I see it as available immediately. In the same way it works for SFTP. With SFTP you can download those files, and to protect yourself you have to do it on your own, and then you should enter full disk access settings, privacy settings, and remove the check mark. You should not remove that wrapper, because next time when secure shell connection is done, it will reappear and again will provide access, full disk access with all protected directories and so on. Well, I told you a bit about this part already. Now about App Store. Apple advertises its App Store as a trusted source for applications, for apps. They have certain rules how to be listed on App Store. There are certain conditions for users. They have a sandbox. Before an Apple extension comes into the App Store, it goes through App and Sandbox, and Sandbox should check it, like what is that application doing, what does it do to the system. And there is that example of Safari extension store, but very recently there was Adware Doctor on App Store, and that Adware Doctor was in top 1 US paid applications and top 4 Canada top applications. There is this QR code, and we have our Lviv-based community, DC3832, and we did some dynamic analysis of that application. If you're interested, you can scan it. We have a video with live stream, and you're welcome to see it, to watch it. This application would collect all the user data, collect the web browsing history, pack it into an archive, and send it to their servers instead of what they said it has to do, namely protecting computer against adware. For extensions, there are certain requirements you have to comply with to contribute to extension store. However, for some reason, some applications appear there which do not comply with normal criteria. Each and every extension which gets into the application store should not contain any additional product placement, any ads, or certain in-app purchases, if it's about advertising. They should not interact with Safari and with user interface, Safari user interface in any way. And Apple should as they say, they have a team checking everything that gets into App Store, and that team should check applications before adding them to App Store. In fact, for some reason, it doesn't work that way, in a similar way as it was with Extension Store. This Safari extension is quite popular. It's also Adware, and it's called Search Manager. It changes your home page. However, it does not do it through default settings. Instead, it does it with JavaScript code. It would it would replace this default search manager and standard functionality of new tab. In fact, this thing does not allow you to manually enter the settings and to switch the search system to the default search system you want to use, like Google or something. Like, you will always have whatever they want as your search system, and they will work through that search. It looks like this. Default search manager is Google. However, when you type something into that search, for example YouTube, you get a web page with a fake Yahoo. You don't see the URL here, but there is this fake Yahoo which doesn't work in each and every country, not always. But with VPN I did get some advertising. Without VPN I didn't get any search results at all. But in fact I didn't get any proper search results. When I was connected over VPN, I got a long list of ad promo, and those ads are for Germany, but there was nothing for Ukraine. This is the redirect for search, and search redirect, which works more or less like this. There is an event listener, and before each and every user search, before calling that search function in web browser, this code gets parameters from curl, from URL, and it replaces the URL to be opened with its own URL and collects information, sending it to its own servers. It fully collects the internet browsing history, and when opening the new website, when going to some page, it would parse the URL and send it to its own servers, and after that it would collect the user history and send target ads. In the same way, there is a trusted installation source. Starting from 10.14, it's impossible to install Safari extensions not from App Store, so they should be signed, and they should not violate those criteria. However, in fact, I did have some video which I will not show here. There are about 26 lines of AppleScript code which would enter Safari and interact with user interface and go to settings and set developer menu on, and through the developer menu would load extension as its own, and after that that extension would work under Safari until Safari is reloaded, and it will work, and but it's possible to do code execution and bypass it.
So that's how the carriers and droppers look like. This is macOS malware, and when it needs the user parameters from the system features, these malware put a picture on the desktop and add the signs to show where the password should be entered. Kind of social engineering technique. There are also many CVE for Mac OS, and as you can see, it's top 4th in the list of vulnerable OSs, and more vulnerable, as you can see, are also Linux and Android. There is the list of zero-day exploits under macOS, and the exploits with the privilege escalations are much cheaper than one for Windows. As you can see, it shows that there are many exploits like this, and a relatively lower price shows that the macOS is not so popular. A bit of information about funny CVEs. This one was issued in 2017, and it exposed the encryption password for some disk partition at the computer. As soon as the user added a hint for the password, which was not mandatory, but if you do it when the password is asked, macOS shows the real password, and it could be overseen and used to decrypt the disk. Patrick Wardle discovered a zero-day in 2017, which I have shown already. The authentication mechanism stored the user passwords in the file that allowed copying. Another CVE of 2017, it is related to a High Sierra version of macOS. You could bypass the privilege escalation by pressing Enter 2 times instead of password. You could give root as your username and then press Enter 2 times to get root privileges in the system. Now, what is the best way to protect yourself? What should be used? What tools are the best? Objective-C is a great company. These are guys involved in developing open source security applications. They have a long list of these applications, but the main two are Knock Knock and Block Block to monitor different persistent methods under macOS, checking daemons, uploading those to VirusTotal, and showing you the statistics. Knock Knock and Block Block are very similar, and the only difference is that Knock Knock is run by the user, and you have to hit the scan button, and Block Block shows at the background, showing you every time when an application is trying to get persistence to be run without the user. There is also a Google Center project. If you search for Google Center, you will be shown, first of all, the link, but you should not use the first one. Use the second one to GitHub, and this is the project to monitor operating system against running the unsigned applications. This project allows you to check blacklists and whitelists, and it should be used instead of Gatekeeper. Unfortunately, it's still under development, the developers are apparently not so willing to contribute, and I could not use it in the proper way. And you also may use antiviruses under macOS. There is no default protection. Under macOS, we have researched the antiviruses to understand which one detects what, and this is the list of antiviruses with the good rating. These are the antiviruses that blocked the largest number. Is anybody taking photos? Actually, I'm through with my presentation. Let's thank Vyacheslav and ask questions. You have shown Bitdefender on the last slide as the best one. So, what exactly did you count? The overall number of malware detection or just for macOS? We have verified the detect number for macOS number. But what kinds of malware did you investigate? We had 70 samples under macOS and 30 for Windows. Are there any more questions? Oh yes, I see you. Thank you for your exciting presentation. My question is as follows. Let's assume that your parents have Apple under macOS. What applications would you install to protect them? Well, I am using Mac and macOS. I have installed BlockBlock, then AdBlockers for Safari, and I comply with regular information security rules. I avoid hitting all links, and I managed to avoid any malware installations. There are many fake torrent trackers, by the way, and you can download many viruses from these fake torrent trackers to analyze on the virtual machines. As far as I know, it's not too simple to install a third-party application under macOS. It's an additional stage, and if you don't do it, you can download only from App Store, and this is safe. My question is as follows. If it's possible to install Safari extensions from App Store only, it means that, and you mentioned the script to be used to bypass this limitation. In this case, the user will see how the script is running. So, is it a real life vulnerability? It was a problem with Safari extensions in the past, but after this limitation, is it a real solution? Well, and those used the same kind of the scripts. By the way, when I showed you the screen with the window to enter password, so you see everything that was running was in the background. You see, the user sees just a window, pop-up window to enter the password, and everything else runs in the background. So I think this is the best thing to suggest to your parents or grandparents. never enter your password. So the first thing to avoid under Linux is to work as root, and in Windows, again, never use admin account. But what about macOS? Well, use the antiviruses. There are some applications that just cannot be run with the root privileges. Are there any more questions, please? No more? Or is it? Yes, is there? Yes? No, no. Disappeared. No, it's there again. People are not so confident. What about the antivirus? Did you try CrowdStrike or things like this as compared with the traditional approach? We had research on the antivirus with ransom protection. This ransom protection uses machine learning, checking the eventual malware with the use of VirusTotal. We tried to run WannaCry, and he reacted when 1/2 of the hard disk was already encrypted. And I have another question. If I am interested in macOS Security, what should I read? Patrick Worrell's Twitter, Objective-C, then Thomas Reed, who is deeply involved in macOS Security, and the feeds that I have shown you. So guys, if you are interested in macOS Security, read Twitter. All the cool experts are there. Thank you. Thank you.